It doesn't matter if you're a Patriot loyalist or a Giants diehard. There's a lot more than pigskin pride at stake on Super Sunday.
Whenever the team plays deep into the playoffs, all of our assets have a spin-off benefit.
From player safety to grand stadiums to advertising that reaches millions, but costs millions too.
We have 30 seconds to get a very important message across.
A big show to get you ready for the big game. Join us on Sportfolio. Hello, I'm Rick Horrow, and welcome to Sportfolio, Bloomberg's weekly inside look at the business of sports. This week, attention is focused on Indianapolis, where the Giants and Patriots meet Sunday in the Super Bowl for a second time in 5 years. The teams are building a classic rivalry, but as businesses, they've got a lot in common. The Kraft family bought the Patriots 18 years ago for what was then a record price of $172 million. And 3 Super Bowl trophies and a new stadium later, the franchise is worth an estimated $1.4 billion. The Mara family's owned the Giants since 1925. 20 years ago, Robert Tisch bought a half interest in the team for $80 million and bequeathed his share to son Steve in 2005. Steve Tisch and John Mara now serve as co-owners of a franchise valued at $1.3 billion. This will be the 6th title game for New England since the Krafts acquired the team. And last week, I asked team president and CEO Jonathan Kraft what a Super Bowl run does for the Patriots as a business.
When you go to the game, it has a significant impact on your business. I think you become more attractive to sponsors in particular who want to partner with you, including those from outside your region. And obviously, it doesn't hurt season ticket waiting lists and things like that.
Well, so for those 6 Super Bowls, you've literally built on the Patriots' success. First, your family constructed Gillette Stadium, then the lifestyle entertainment complex Patriot Place. Does the Super Bowl give a bounce to these kind of projects and, by extension, to the New England community?
The greatest part was hosting the AFC Championship game, which we just did for the 3rd time in Gillette Stadium's 10 years. And I don't think Foxborough is ever going to host a Super Bowl. Robert might disagree with me on that, but I'm not sure it's happening. So I think that does have a big economic impact. And whenever the team plays deep into the playoffs, all of our assets have a spin-off benefit to that. And we've definitely seen that the last few weeks.
Well, let's probe that just for a second. Your father may disagree. If New York gets its, why can't you get yours?
I think New York got theirs for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, it's the world's greatest city. I live in Boston, but at the end of the day, New York is truly the world's just greatest city. And MetLife Stadium has a capacity that's 12,000, 15,000 greater than Gillette Stadium. If it goes well, and it all works well, maybe there will be more open-air, cold weather, major Northeast Super Bowls. And I guarantee you, we'll then throw our hat into the ring. But we also like being realistic up here, too.
You lost your mom, Myra, last July. She was not just a beloved family member, obviously. She was a partner in the business. How will you honor her memory in Indianapolis?
My mother, while she was a Patriot fan, I wouldn't call her the most passionate fan of the National Football League. But what she loved, what her true passion in life was volunteering and helping other people who might be suffering from circumstances that were less fortunate than ours. We've put aside 20 tickets to this game, and we're going to send 2 firefighters, 2 police officers, 2 teachers, 2 nurses, and 2 military people from New England. We're getting thousands of nominations, and each of them is going to be able to bring a guest, fly down with us, stay at one of our hotels, go to the game, and go to a party, to symbolize the importance of volunteerism and serving others. And that's definitely, that's, I think, the most visible way that we'll be honoring my mother's legacy.
Well, finally, people give credit to Myra for motivating your father to bring owners and players together to end the lockout. Looking back on what has to rank as one of the great seasons in NFL history, can you believe it was almost wiped out?
Yeah, it was a tough time back in the late spring and early summer, and my dad was really focused and committed from when my mom got sick in the spring. He never came to the office. He was just very devoted to her and by her bedside. While she wasn't a passionate fan of the NFL, she knew how critical the NFL season was to so many Americans, and She told my dad, you know, I know you can go solve this. I'm okay with you leaving me. Go get this done. And that was literally the only time he would leave her bedside. And I think when he'd go to those talks, he was a powerful bridge because people understood what he was leaving to go and do it. But I think he truly had the respect of both sides of the table. But a lot of other people deserve a lot of credit, too. And I think, obviously, Roger Goodell on our side, and on the player side, D. Smith, who was new to this job and learned a lot quickly and got the lay of the land. And the best part is we ended up with a deal that really does benefit everybody involved, the players, the owners, and the fans. And now we've got 10 years of labor peace ahead of us, and hopefully this deal will serve as a foundation for labor peace well beyond just the term of the initial agreement.
The Giants have 3 Super Bowl appearances and 1 victory since the Tisches and Maras combined forces. And as Jonathan Kraft mentioned, they'll co-host the 2014 game at MetLife Stadium, the grand new facility they own with the Jets. And joining us now is Steve Tisch, Chairman and Executive Vice President of the Giants. Steve, I'll begin with the same question I asked Jonathan. What does a Super Bowl berth do for the Giants as a business?
We have seen a sharp rise in the activation of all of our social media outlets. Also, our sponsor partners, MetLife, the naming rights partner, Pepsi, Verizon, Anheuser-Busch, they're thrilled.
All that means positive brand building and obviously significant revenue. Patriots, family-owned, the Giants co-owned by 2 families. What makes the Tisch-Mara partnership work so successfully?
It's been a terrific partnership. I think John and I know what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are. It's a very functional, professional business. We're good friends, and we share a common interest, which is making the New York Giants as a brand the best in the NFL. We both really put our fans first. Our fans mean everything to us, and we have a tremendous passion about the product on the field.
Well, and from your perspective as a world-class producer, you certainly had experience of putting on world events, and you're in the middle of planning the first open-air Super Bowl in a cold-weather city. We're checking the Farmer's Almanac forecast for a couple of years from now, but in the meantime, we'll see you around Indy scribbling down notes on the fan experience to bring back to your committee in New York?
Yeah, we've been involved ever since we were awarded the Super Bowl in 2014. Last year in Dallas, we have put together a fantastic team headed by Al Kelly, and Al has put together a great group of executives who are working with him. My brother John Tisch and Woody Johnson are co-chairing the Super Bowl committee, and we're going to learn a lot this Sunday in Indianapolis. We have people there right now, but I think New York City, the state of New Jersey, hosting Super Bowl 2014 is going to be fantastic, and a week for fans, for sponsors, for players and their families that they'll never forget.
NFL is a business. Great year for the NFL, not just for the Giants. How often do you sit back and reflect and say, thank goodness we got that labor deal done?
I say it often, especially because it was a fantastic season for all 32 teams. The television ratings have broken records. Most importantly, the fans were not denied access to any football. And I really have to acknowledge Roger Goodell, his staff of attorneys and executives for keeping their focus, and the Players Association really working with Goodell and his staff sat down to make a deal, not to break a deal.
Steve Tisch, thank you so much for being on Sportfolio.
Always my pleasure.
That's just the first quarter of our Super Bowl preview show. Still ahead, Indianapolis has designs on becoming a destination city for major sports events. Meet the man who designed the stadium that's making it possible. And coming up, a year ago, DeMaurice Smith was battling Roger Goodell at the bargaining table. How's their relationship now?
He represents the issues of his constituents, and my guess is he would say exactly the same thing about me.
The head of the Players Union speaks out when Sportfolio returns. If the Bloomberg Businessweek Horrow Sports Ventures Power 100 is any guide, the Patriots should be favored in the Super Bowl. They have 3 of the top 100 most influential athletes for 2011. Wes Welker, Rob Gronkowski, and Tom Brady. The only Giant in the Power 100 is Eli Manning at number 15. Check out the full list at Bloomberg.com. The NFL placed 26 players in the Power 100, more than any other sport. And when owners and players signed a 10-year labor deal last summer, they solidified that power for a decade to come. Players Association Executive Director DeMaurice Smith deserves much of the credit for closing this grand bargain. And even some of his concessions have turned out to be victories for the membership. Smith stopped by Bloomberg's Bottom Line to give Mark Crumpton a State of the Union message.
How were you able to get the 55%? And at that time, did you have any idea that this was on the table, a TV deal with the networks of this magnitude?
Well, you certainly didn't know anything that we shouldn't have known on the table. Our job is to certainly make projections like any business person does about what's happened with television contracts over time. We thought that it was in our best interest to secure a larger percentage of those TV contracts in exchange for giving owners certainty about an amount of money that they can invest in growing the game. And the art of compromise is coming out where you certainly don't get everything you want, but you certainly get the things you need.
One of the other concerns of the union and of the league, the effect of concussions. As everybody knows, it is a very violent and a very dangerous game, but the concussive effects cannot be overlooked. There was some controversy this week where some of the Giants players were quoted in the media saying that they were looking to put a smackdown on the young man from San Francisco, knowing that he had a couple of concussions, and then he fumbles a ball, one of the balls hits him in the leg, and the Giants get good field position, they win the game. When you hear talk like that, what's your first reaction?
Well, my first reaction when I saw those comments was, one, my guess is that information about Cal Williams' early concussions probably came from a coach. So that's my first question, and it's the question that we're going to be asking. But overall, our goal is to keep our players safe, not only today, but well into the future, because we do know now about the long-term effects of concussions. So one of the things that we achieved in this collective bargaining agreement was a change in the way in which football is played and practiced. There's no more two-a-days in football anymore. You can only have one padded practice a week. You can only have a few padded practices after week 11. And most importantly, our guys are now off for a longer period of time than they ever have been. So the overall goal in reducing concussions is reducing the opportunity for players to engage or get into a traumatic brain injury situation.
What's your relationship like with Commissioner Goodell, and what's he like as a negotiator sitting across the table from you?
It's a good relationship. I think that I know that we both were probably thrust into a relationship that was probably one of the most contentious, high-profile relationships of all time. But I'm proud that both of us realized that it would take two of us to ensure that what was in the best interest of our players and fans and management was going to rely on our relationship. And I'm happy to say that it is a good one. Do we agree on everything? No. But as a negotiator, I'm sure he would share what I would say about him. He's very tough. He represents the issues of his constituents, and my guess is he would say exactly the same thing about me.
Smith took the reins of the Players Association after the death of Gene Upshaw in 2009, and most analysts give D a solid A for his skillful leadership during and after the lockout. Now, since the first Super Bowl in 1967, the average NFL player salary has risen from $19,000 to almost $2 million. And a 30-second Super Bowl spot in this year's game cost $3.5 million. Which brings us to our Sportfolio Stumper. What was the cost of a 30-second commercial in Super Bowl I in 1967? We'll give you the answer when we return. Here's the answer to our super Sportfolio Stumper. Sponsors could buy 30-second commercial spots in the telecast of Super Bowl I in 1967 for $42,000. The economic impact of the Super Bowl on a host community begins long before the first fans arrive to fill hotels and line up at restaurants. Bloomberg's Matt Miller explains the costs and benefits to a city that gets the game.
I'm here at MetLife Stadium, home of the New York Jets and the New York Football Giants, and Super Bowl 48. They'll host the big game right here in 2014, and this is the biggest stadium in the NFL with 82,500 seats. Hosting the Super Bowl isn't cheap. In fact, even before Indianapolis scored the big game, the city raised $25 million to prove they could throw the biggest party in American sports. This year, about 150,000 people are expected to go to Indianapolis, even though only 68,000 people have tickets. And those kind of numbers really pay off. It's expected to generate more than $155 million in revenue for everything from going to restaurants to staying in hotels. To entertain those extra folks, Indianapolis is transforming the downtown area into a 10-day-long block party called Super Bowl Village. Complete with 2 outdoor stages and even a zip line. I cannot wait to get there. I'm Matt Miller in East Rutherford, New Jersey. That was a pretty good spike.
The positive economic impact of a Super Bowl on a community can last a long time if planned right. Houston, Phoenix, Dallas, and Indy all built stadiums that not only met the NFL's requirements, but could be converted to host other major events. And who better to explain how it's done than Brian Truby, principal with HKS Sports and Entertainment Group, who designed Cowboys Stadium and Lucas Oil Stadium. He joins us from L.A. Hey, Brian, Super Bowls are hard to get. Everybody wants them, and you got to design some special stuff in the stadium to be considered for a Super Bowl. What is that special stuff?
Well, we have to accommodate a larger crowd than we do for a normal NFL game. And really, Lucas Oil and Cowboys are the first new buildings for the NFL designed around Super Bowl first, and then regular season games second. So we expect the party to be just as big this year as it was last year in Dallas.
Well, let's talk about the parameters of that party. You're expecting 150,000 people roaming the streets of Indy, but only 67,000 seats, and the stadium alone can't contain the volume of visitors that will come to Indy this week. How does the stadium interact with the Indiana Convention Center and the surrounding infrastructure as well?
Yeah, this is one of the huge positives about Indy. They've spent over $1 billion in the last 10 years on their downtown area, irrespective of Lucas Oil. And so what you've got is one of the greatest urban environments really ever for a Super Bowl. Huge connection, enclosed connection with the Indiana Convention Center and the stadium. And then, of course, connection with the downtown mall, which has been hugely popular for a number of years now. So what you've really got is one of the best outdoor and indoor environments all woven together in one of the best urban cities really in the country, regardless of size.
Well, and part of the economic magic of the building is that Indy landed multiple men's and women's Final Fours because of the basketball capability. How did the stadium design support that bid?
Well, that was one of our key criteria from the very beginning, was to make it a great convention center add-on, to make it a great place for NCAA Final Four basketball, and to make it a great place for NFL football. And so what we did really from the very beginning was design and develop a pretty innovative concept that allows us to seat 70,000 plus for center court basketball, and actually have all the seats in the lower bowl have great sight lines. That's been a great piece of business for us, because after being chosen for Lucas Oil to design that stadium, we've been taken by the NCAA around the country to all the other big domes where we've installed that same kind of proprietary system so that they can have larger events in each of the large dome facilities around the country.
So quickly put on your stadium gazing crystal ball glasses and identify the next big trend in stadium building that might impact future Super Bowls.
Well, you know, the one thing that's happened in these buildings that we've led the charge on really with Cowboys and Lucas Oil is that they're as much about the other events. And that's what is so powerful about the economic impact that comes out of these facilities, is we're able to host any number of other world-class events in the building, from NBA All-Star Games, NHL All-Star Games, major concerts, special events that are really focused on the community. And so these buildings and a lot of the innovation that we're putting into these buildings is really about the other events and activating them 365 days a year.
Thanks, Brian, and enjoy the spotlight on your work in Indianapolis.
Thank you, Rick.
Also in the spotlight this week, the latest crop of Super Bowl commercials. And coming up on Sportfolio, we'll find out why a company that hasn't bought a TV ad in 2 years is shelling out for a spot on Super Sunday.
See how our agent stacks up against Dion in the third quarter.
According to a Nielsen study, 75% of viewers who tune into the Super Bowl consider the ads part of the entertainment. Past Super Bowls have featured some of the most famous commercials in television history. So the bar is high, but there are always new sponsors ready to belly up.
And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
This is the Motor City. This is what we do.
These are some of the most memorable Super Bowl ads of all time. But this year, real estate firm Century 21 will join the list of companies trying to capture the attention of 100 million viewers. But according to Chief Marketing Officer Beverly Thorne, their goal is not to be iconic.
It's about brand preference. It's about an affinity for the brand. It's about the consumer feeling better about reaching to a Century 21 agent.
They're that fast.
Not only is this the company's first Super Bowl ad buy, but it's their first TV spot since the depths of the housing crisis in 2009.
It is a strong statement of confidence, first in our agents, in the Century 21 agents, and their ability to deliver smarter, bolder, faster capabilities that will help the home buyer and home seller. And it's also clearly our vote of support for the dream of home ownership.
3 celebrities drive home the ad's message.
Smarter, bolder, faster.
It's just coincidence, says Thorne, the 2 of them are athletes.
Our decision-making was really led by what celebrities personify the traits that we want the consumer to instantly recognize. Remember, we have 30 seconds to get a very important message across.
And 30 seconds does not come cheap. The average spot costs a whopping $3.5 million. That kind of money would buy you 4 medium-price homes in Manhattan, or 21 if you were willing to consider the expanded New York region. With this ad, Century 21 knows it'll reach its core demographic of 25 to 34-year-olds and beyond.
It's not only the target consumer themselves, but it's their influencers. So think about who they turn to for consultation. It's their parents, it's their friends, it's their neighbors, it's their trusted advisors. All of those people will be engaged in watching the Super Bowl. So we get not only our target audience, but we get their influencers.
So the return on a Super Bowl ad investment? For this company, it's pretty simple. Talk is priceless.
What we're looking for clearly is more conversations.
There will be much to converse about after the Super Bowl, and we'll bring special guests in next week to analyze the event, the telecast, and of course, the commercials. That's it for this edition of Sportfolio. Thanks to Jonathan Kraft, Steve Tisch, Dee Smith, Brian Truby, and the folks at Century 21 for being part of the show. And thank you for watching. For more on the business of the Super Bowl, check out our weekly sports and entertainment dollar column at businessweek.com. Enjoy the game, everybody. See you next time.